This week in Pure Reinvention.
Mentorship is really about asking the right questions, having someone ask you questions and making you think about things differently.
Lauren Kase, Head of Marketing Partnerships, Floyd Detroit.
Engage, disrupt, adapt, repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious people.
So episode 154 is about the two Laurens. We've got Lauren Kase of Floyd Detroit and Lauren Snyder, who's our co-host. Lauren, one little thing that you really took away from the Lauren Kase interview.
I think the number one thing that I took away from Lauren Kase was, and the story of Floyd Detroit, was this idea of simplicity and how in simplicity rests success.
Isn't that awesome?
And it's very exciting because it makes something as successful as Floyd seem doable.
I want our listeners to really think about what you just said, Lauren, in that in our success lies simplicity. And in simplicity lies success. We sometimes think it's so complicated. And I think you're right. I think Lauren does a really nice job of talking about how focused, right, the mission of Floyd is. It seems relatively simple, but in that it's an extremely complicated setup. But they know exactly what they're doing, why they're doing it. And I think when people go to their website and look at their products, it would become very evident just how cool of a company it is. Let's listen.
This week's episode is sponsored by HRM Services, providing solutions that work. HRMS provides customized human resource consulting services to fit the unique needs of their clients. Every client has a story, and they make it their business to learn yours. Contact HRM Services today at 517-974-8033 or visit their website at hrmservices.biz.
Lauren, we're very pleased at Pure Reinvention to have you as a guest.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, Lauren, before we get started in your background and how you got to be in Detroit, we ask our podcast guests the same three questions. So, of the 5 steps in the reinvention process, which step do you most closely associate yourself with?
For me, I'm really owning the ownership element where I'm coming in, I'm taking something that's an opportunity and really making it my own.
Making it happen.
And whether that's with what I'm doing at my company or just, being here in Detroit, trying to own that experience.
What is your superpower?
I think my superpower is really about curiosity about people and really wanting to dig in and really understand why people think the way they think or why they like doing certain things. And that's really helped me connect with others. And that's been hugely important in kind of the work that I'm excited about.
Tell us about a time more recently when you found yourself uncomfortable.
This will be a little bit more of a work example, but we're really creating disruptive experiences. And there's been times when we haven't been able to deliver recently. And that's been really uncomfortable, putting us in really tough place where customers are demanding from us, this is what you're selling. Why hasn't it happened? I can get into specifically what that is a little bit later. But I think that has been really uncomfortable when I'm not able to provide that experience that we're trying to.
We all try to please, don't we?
Oh, yes.
So, Lauren, you are originally from San Francisco.
I am.
You are a young professional, have found yourself in a city, working in a city that's very different from San Francisco.
Oh, yes.
Why Detroit?
Detroit was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. And I was at the University of Michigan, several years back and sort of started coming downtown. When I first was going to University of Michigan, I thought, wow, I'm flying into Detroit. I don't know anything about that. And over the years, sort of found myself coming down here and exploring. And there was not a lot going on back then.
This would have been when?
This would have been 2010 to 2014.
Okay.
So the bankruptcy is happening, not a whole lot of activity downtown. And you'd come here and growing up in the city of San Francisco, so used to there always being people on the street.
Yeah, very walkable, right?
And it's super
very,
walkable.
Very
and just the visual landscape of Detroit was so different. It felt like post-apocalyptic
it was
to
stark,
me.
gritty.
And Right. And so, but there was something about it. I used to tell people back home, they'd be like, what are you doing there? I spent a summer, interning down here, and they're like, why are you in Detroit? And there's just, despite the way it looked and the lack of people and businesses and that sort of thing, there was just something about it that got me. And, now I've sort of come to identify that and speak to that more as sort of this spirit of innovation that's here. There's just a spirit like in the ground that you can feel when you're here.
It's kind of the new culture, isn't it?
Right. And there's an excitement and an opportunity to come in and make yourself exactly how you want to. There's no having to fit any sort of mold or, jump up any ladder.
Do you find that other individuals like you in your age group who are in that, what we would call the young professional,
Sure.
the picture of a modern future workforce, do you find others that find that same attraction to Detroit?
Yeah. I mean, it's still a really small town. That's something that I've been, it's the exact opposite of I grew up in a big city. This feels like a small town. I can't go anywhere without seeing someone I know, which is awesome. But I think that collective of individuals, a lot of people share that same spirit and they identify with that part of the city. And that's what brought them there. If they're not from here or if they're from around here, that's what kept them.
Are you saying they're
opportunity.
Looking for innovative opportunities,
Right.
entrepreneurial opportunities, a place to kind of own in their space and make a difference?
Oh, yeah, a place where they can have a difference and they can, put their mark on something. And I think that attracts people here. And so thereby, a lot of the individuals that you're interacting with, they share that.
Your happiness, as evidenced by your smiling, is what would allow others to see that this is a genuine observation and ownership that you have. This isn't manufactured. This is real.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel it. And that's what keeps me here, is that I know that this opportunity doesn't exist for me in San Francisco right now.
Or maybe anywhere else in the world
or maybe
right now.
anywhere else. Yeah, just thinking about, from what I know is that city and in comparison, the opportunities I have here just don't exist in the same way.
So
at all.
tell us about the work that you're doing for this startup company that you're putting all this energy into.
Yes. So about 3 years ago, the company began. The company is called Floyd, and we are a built for the internet furniture brand. So we design and manufacture pieces that are simple to buy, easy to ship, very easy to assemble, and built to last. And they're very high quality pieces. And in that same vein of how the opportunities people living in cities, this young professional group trying to figure themselves out, they're living differently than they were in the past. And they're buying things online and they're moving more frequently and they're spending more on experiences and all of these different elements. And furniture in general is sort of a broken model. You have the same sort of companies that have been doing it for years. You either have the big box store like IKEA that has cheap particle board furniture that's basically built for the culture of disposability. You don't really want to move it. It's a huge challenge. And then you have really high-end design that is inaccessible from a price point standpoint for a lot of younger people. And it's a big commitment. Something that felt very important to me when I was connecting with Floyd and why I came to work there is really, I'd always been super interested in design and, beautifully well-made things. And, that always felt somewhat unattainable in the context of I wasn't a designer. I didn't know anything about that. And Floyd felt like the perfect way to sort of bring that design to people that's actually attainable.
And so what is that?
Right. So we have a very specific kind of design aesthetic. And we began with a leg that attaches to any surface material to make a table. So the idea was always in the broader sense about identifying this issue in furniture. That was the easiest way to start a furniture company, was the table is in everyone's home all over the world. And how do we rethink that for something that's mobile, that's easy to assemble, that fits the way people are truly living? And so we started with a Kickstarter for the leg and ended up blowing our goal out of the water in the first day.
What was your goal?
Our goal was to produce 100 sets of legs, which is about $18,000.
Okay.
And we ended up
$18,000 in retail sales?
That would have been the collective,
Okay.
to produce 100 sets of legs.
Okay.
And then we ended up producing over 1,400 sets, raising over 256,000, shipping internationally from the beginning. So
awesome.
we knew, that was sort of the way to test if the idea had, the proverbial
legs, right?
Exactly. And it did, and really resonated with people all over the world. And from there, we started continually building this company that we're, our mission, we believe the most sustainable thing is not throwing anything away. And we want to be the simplest source of furniture for the entire world.
So you incubated in Pony Ride.
We did. So we began in Pony Ride, and we had this tiny little corner of space. It was just basically a desk. And now we've expanded, over the past couple of years into a whole room, and we're actually moving out of Pony Ride.
So now you're going outside of the incubator to a new location to really establish yourself as this right?
And we
real thing.
Yeah. So we began with the leg about a year and a half ago. We launched our bed frame, which was the first kind of full product. So it came with everything you needed. And that has just been like wildly successful. And I was speaking earlier to not being able to provide, we try to have, ships next day. So it'll be at your door really quickly. And we haven't been able to do that because the demand is so high.
Are you saying there's some challenges with being too successful?
Yes, there are. And not that we're being too successful. There's lots of work to be done, but it's really exciting to have people resonate with the product and what we're after. But then to not be able to deliver on it is a real challenge. But it's a better challenge to have than the alternative. People love what we're doing, and they're extremely
excited. Got to drive
excited.
production a little harder.
Right. So, with that, we're growing like crazy. And one of those things is we're growing out of Pony Ride.
Which is why you need the additional space
Exactly.
which is why you're moving.
Yes.
And when is that move going to happen?
Probably in the next couple months.
Oh,
the
so
space
soon.
is getting built out right now. Yeah.
Okay. So this is a direct result of the amount of success that you've experienced in the marketplace, right?
Yes.
Real customers.
Success. Yep.
The revenue has been and demand has been so great. You now have to move. I want to say this the right way. You're beginning to move into new production stages. So in the next stage, you've identified a space which may or may not be enough for the next step.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Because that all you have to do that dance based on your market demand.
And this is just our kind of company people. So we have one of the reasons why it works so well that we're in Detroit is the manufacturing infrastructure that exists here, the tacit knowledge in that base.
Yes.
And we began with all of our manufacturers.
It's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very important. And learning from all
people
those
who
people who know what's going on.
Right.
And so our manufacturing's all done in the Great Lakes region, and we've kind of expanded as we've needed more production. So we've got these really strong partnerships, and as we're growing, these companies are also growing because again, we have to meet that demand. So there's a lot of growth happening with the company.
I think that sometimes we forget in kind of looking at what's wrong with something, like using the backdrop of Detroit as the example, what's wrong with Detroit. We forget to sometimes recognize, as you have, and in the comments that you've made of this cultural knowledge that exists about how to make things, how to produce things, how to automate things, right? How to assemble things.
Oh, yeah.
And how to do it on a very large scale. Mm-hmm. So that as entrepreneurs start to build out their next phases, right, being able to tap into that knowledge is key.
Right. You have from like the Model T to Motown there's a huge tacit knowledge in furniture in Michigan. You've got Herman Miller and Kase on the west side of the state. You've got Cranbrook right here, the incubator for like the Eames, and their really iconic design that was similar to kind of the spirit that we're operating under of wanting to provide really simple utility designs that can really go anywhere in your home.
As a young professional, what are the things that will cause you to stay in an environment like Detroit?
The opportunity is great here, but something that can be improved upon is just, there is all of that tacit knowledge and there's a lot of people that know what they're doing, but the connection to the younger people that are coming in and, owning their own path, there's not as much of that connection and mentorship happening as I think there could be.
You think there should be more?
There's
an opportunity there.
There's an opportunity there for more connection. I'm in the marketing world and I'm super hungry to learn from other people. And then in a similar context, those people that have years of experience probably have something to learn from the younger generation too about
it's a win-win, isn't it?
Right. So it's a mutual mentorship. And I think that that's something that needs to really strengthen for companies to stay, or else, I just got back from New York last night where I had to go, meet with people that have become advisors because it's been hard to find that here. And I think that's going to be super necessary to keep these people engaged here.
I think you have just coined a new phrase in this: mutual mentorship. As the world is evolving at a very fast pace, we find different parts of the spectrum have different parts of knowledge.
Absolutely.
Each are very important, each having the opportunity to coach and mentor the other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get the best, right? The best combination.
Right. And you can help each other, forge your own path, whatever path you're on. It doesn't have to be the same path. There's a lot of benefit from what I've learned. Mentorship is really about asking the right questions, having someone ask you questions and making you think about things differently.
Talk about the value of mentorship in the young professional world, you, your peers, and where you view that in your educational growth post-academic,
Sure.
post-organized, and
Mm-hmm.
now as you move into this next phase.
Right. As I was saying, I think it's really about asking questions. You need somebody that, comes at their problems with a specific way that they approach it. And by them asking you questions about how you're approaching something, there's a lot of value in just understanding their perspective through that question.
So you are attracted to others who have a professional curiosity.
Absolutely.
You want to be asked questions, and you want to have the opportunity to ask questions to them.
Yes.
So that's that mutual curiosity. Tell me about you. What makes you tick? Why are you doing what you do? But you want to do it back. It's not a one-way street.
Yeah. And I think there needs to be a collaboration between people, whether it's like a city and the people that have been here and the people that are coming here. There needs to be a conversation facilitated where learnings can be exchanged both ways. And I think that benefits both parties equally.
Tell our listeners how they can learn more about Floyd and its products and how to interact with the company.
Well, we're a direct-to-consumer company, so you can find us online at floyddetroit.com, and you can purchase any of our products there. If you're a social media user, we have a beautiful Instagram that is at the handle at Floyd Detroit. And we're growing, and we have a lot of new products on the way, so stay tuned for that.
So if someone is attracted to wanting to learn more about you and the work you are doing outside of Floyd, how can they get a hold of you?
They could shoot me an email at lauren@floyddetroit.com, and I'd be happy to chat and ask questions.
And encourage collaboration.
Absolutely.
Lauren, this has been awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Lauren, as we promised, that was a really awesome interview, but I want to loop back to the comment you made about Lauren talking about her superpower being ownership, but then you looped it right back around to simplify and how important it is that key leaders driving key projects are able to simplify the mission for people to understand.
And that was what was most interesting about Lauren was really, that she claimed ownership as her superpower, but the way that she's owned the simple mission of Floyd Detroit is really where the heart of it is. And I think the beauty of their simple approach is it's so simple that it's natural for Lauren to explain it, for people to understand it. And one of the things that she said, and she probably doesn't even remember saying it, but it was that Floyd wants to be the simplest source of furniture for the entire world. But right there is their entire mission. It was very profound. They want to be the simplest source of furniture in the world. If you look at the companies that they're competing with, she mentioned kind of the IKEAs,
Sure.
The disposable furniture companies, and then also these high-end, almost inaccessible furniture companies. And going through the Rolodex in my mind of all those brands, I don't think I could identify with any of their missions the way that Floyd stood out in such a nice, neat little package. In their simplicity, they've also created a niche for themselves between those two categories, that they didn't need to take on specifically the disposable IKEAs of the world or the high-end furnitures, but that they found this simple, straightforward path to break into the furniture market, and they're doing well.
Now let's use these words. I want to think about these words you're using. You're talking about simplify. You're talking about natural. And I love that word. That's a word that hasn't come up before, but natural because it flows so easily, right? It's so easy to understand, so easy to accept, so easy to see that product or that message being utilized. You talked about honesty. Talk about how honesty came to mind with this particular podcast.
So Lauren herself was very honest, about the growth that Floyd is experiencing, and then also the challenges that have ensued because of that growth, and how the feelings that they have as a company and being disappointed that they're not being able to perform at the level they'd like because of how quickly they're growing. And I think that being that straightforward and honest, is very simple. You have nothing to hide if you tell the truth.
Right.
It's a very simple approach to marketing, but it creates this authenticity for their brand that makes it relatable and makes it understandable for a regular consumer. It just reinforces everything that they're about. The simple approach, simple honesty, what you see is what you get, and they want to give you excellence.
And you have been on site with that group. So you have experienced that passion that comes with that honesty and with that very natural intent for what they want to put out into the marketplace. So it isn't just words, is it?
No, it's embodied by their entire staff, which is what was so incredible about meeting this team of people at Floyd Detroit, because they're this almost hodgepodge of different backgrounds and interests, and they've all come together under this one product, this one brand. And yet their vocabulary when describing while they're there, it's full of authenticity and passion.
You also introduced me to a new phrase, and I want you to spend a few minutes, Lauren, and talk about the phrase mutual mentorship. What does that phrase mean to you as you introduced it to me?
So this idea of mutual mentorship, Lauren used it, and it so perfectly summarized what should happen in a mentorship capacity. And that is, that it's a two-way street and that it's a conversation. It's not a dictatorship of somebody telling you exactly what you should do, but this idea that there's something for you to learn from this other person, and then vice versa. And I think that that's what Lauren was really getting at was, this idea of mutual membership, especially when it comes to the tacit knowledge that she, mentioned that Detroit has. And also, that knowledge needs to get passed down to this next generation of very passionate entrepreneurs within Detroit. But that also these young people, these young professionals in Detroit have something to share with older generations who might have, lived through and seen a lot, but might not have the energy or the excitement or even the eye for the opportunities out there. And so I think that's applicable in any industry, especially, in a place like Detroit where you have a hub for manufacturing, a very traditional industry, but it's getting this new breath of life from these excited young professionals. And that mutual exchange of excitement and energy in return for wisdom, I mean, that's powerful. And that's the power of Detroit right there if it comes to fruition.
Thank you for bringing that together all so well. If you're ready for a change, make it a change that lasts. Make it Pure Reinvention.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new podcasts are up by following us on Twitter at Pure Reinvention or sign up for our mailing list at purereinvention.com.